Hey, fabulous ladies, and welcome back to episode 3 of Permission to Reinvent, the This Woman Can mini series. This is your personal permission to show up, glow up, and build a life that's on your terms and a career that you actually want in this next beautiful chapter. I am your host, Janice Sutherland, career strategist and executive coach for the mature Black woman, and a proud member of the Over 50 and Fabulous Club. So, this week I am talking about something that a lot of women over 50 tend to forget. That you are the asset, not the company for what you worked for, not the title, not the resume you keep writing over and editing like it's going to write you a love letter. Your lived wisdom, your experience, your resilience, your midlife magic. And believe me, we are not about to downplay that for anybody. So today we're celebrating the skills, the sass and savvy that comes with being a woman who's lived a little and loved or survived a lot. We are going to talk about how to reframe your experience as value, not a history to be hidden, because you have so much to offer. Right, reinvention does not mean erasing your past, because let's face it, your past is the foundation. And I'll even share real world examples of women just like you who are turning their so called soft skills into big, bold, beautiful new ventures. So let me just give you a little reminder, a little gentle reminder of how you should be approaching this. I want you, first of all, to focus on reframing your experience. You're not outdated, you're upgraded. Your decades of leadership, crisis handling, negotiating skills, whether in boardrooms or living rooms, are gold. It's what companies are looking for. Companies are finally catching up to the power of emotional intelligence, critical thinking, and leadership under pressure. And guess who's got all of those skills and got it on lock? You do. Secondly, reinvention is an addition. It's not erasure. We're not talking about getting rid of the skills you have. It's not about pretending you're someone else. It's a bit about repackaging what you already possess, the skills you already have, in a way that fits who you are now or who you want to be in the future. It's like updating your wardrobe. You add a few pieces, but you keep the classic pieces that you really like that reflect your life, where you are right now. And speaking of reinvention, I am so excited to introduce today's guest, Laverne Benton. Laverne went from being a high powered banker to following her passion and opening a thriving fiber arts business, BzyPeach. Yes, you heard right, from balance sheets to knitwork, to knitting, and loving every minute of it. She is living proof that you can leverage your skills, pivot into passion, and own your midlife magic. So, without further ado, let's get into my conversation with the inspiring Laverne Benton. Everybody, and welcome back to this week's edition of This Woman Can. I am your host, Janice Sutherland, career and life strategist for the mature Black woman. And we are here, as always, to celebrate bold, creative, and inspiring women making their mark. And today we are exploring or diving into the colourful world of fibre arts. Now, what may be, you say? Well, our guest is Laverne Benton, and she is the creative force to BzyPeach, a vibrant small business based in Atlanta, Georgia. Laverne isn't just an entrepreneur, she's a fibre arts visionary, hand dyeing luxury yards, embroidery threads, and crafting stunning crochet patterns that help makers bring their artistic dreams to life. But BzyPeach is more than just yarn, it's a movement. With over 28 years of experience in banking, Laverne blends business savvy with creative passion, building a brand rooted in community, craftsmanship, and inspiration. And if you've ever tuned into a Saturday morning shenanigans on Instagram Live, you will know that she brings the perfect mix of humor, insight, and real talk about life, art, and everything in between. And at the core of it, a simple but powerful philosophy: be a peach. Positive, encouraging, audacious, creative, and happy. I just love that. I'm a peach. And today she's here to share her journey, her wisdom, and a little bit of that peachy magic. So grab your favorite cozy project, settle in, and let's get into it. Laverne, welcome to This Woman Can.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for being my guest. Now, you started in banking, embroidery, and create all the fiber arts. Tell me how you got to where you are today.
Oh gosh, it's a long road. But yeah, from banking to fiber arts doesn't sound like it makes a lot of sense, I would imagine. But as a single mom and a working woman, I started off in the banking industry as a part-time teller and worked my way up and to assistant branch manager, and then started working back office and in private wealth. Um, and while doing that, I did some things like I went back to school, went and got a master's degree. While I was doing that, I found fiber arts again. I initially learned how to crochet when I was about 10. Put it down because it wasn't really the cool thing to do as a
Yep.
teenager. But when I was back in school, I had two kids, I was working full time, and I needed some way to decompress. I picked back up a crochet needle and started making some granny squares and made a ton of granny square blankets in the evening just to calm my mind,
Yeah,
just to
yeah,
relax. And so, um, I've always had a creative side, a crafty side. I come from a creative family. And so I think naturally, as I was looking for a de stressor, as I was trying to build my career and further my corporate life, I turned back
yeah.
to my creative side.
Fantastic. And I like what you said there. And I think one of the things we forget when we're doing this corporate pursuit and stuff like that, we sometimes forget that creative side, or we feel we're not creative because we spent so much time in the corporate world. And I've been very
Yes.
similar to you, work the ladder, all that kind of stuff. And one,
Mm,
my creative side has been writing. And I'd always
nice.
been an avid reader, but never thought I could be a writer. But
Right.
now I love it, and I do a little bit of fiber arts, bit of sewing. I used to crochet. I have still have my knitting needles sitting
Okay.
somewhere. But because but living in a Caribbean country, the need for kind of woolens and stuff like that is a little far between. But anyway, I digress. But yeah, I think we forget about our creative side. I think it's a really good outlet, as you said, to distress and just to switch off that little bit
Yeah.
in that mind. So when you made that transition from the corporate to entrepreneur, what do you think was unique about pivoting at this stage of life?
Well, I'll tell you, it wasn't a hard pivot initially.
Okay.
Um, I've always had been the type of person to have multiple things going. I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit, in addition to a creative spirit. So, throughout the years, I've maybe tried one or two small businesses.
Mm,
And this blossoming into a full fiber arts business happened during the pandemic.
yeah,
Um, I'm leaning heavily into it now because unfortunately, exactly a year ago, I was notified that my corporate position was being eliminated,
yeah,
as the institution I worked for was downsizing, cutting expenses to the tune of $700 million overall and 300 million in personnel expenses. So that was scary.
yeah,
So over the past year, I've done a lot of self work and I've done a lot of leaning into my business, and I'm ready to just take it up to the
mm,
next level. So it wasn't necessarily a hard pivot. I was working the business part time while still
yeah,
working full time in the corporate
yeah,
world, but I find myself in the position now where at 52, I am having a hard time getting back into the corporate world,
mm,
just
yeah,
because interviewing and applying is so much different
yeah,
than what I was used to. And then also because I really want to lean into my own, like what
yeah,
I own.
yeah,
So it's maybe the pivot is really happening now, as I have began to absorb, okay, let's make use of what I can control and use my own hands and mind and
Yeah.
creativity and ingenuity and, all of the things that I've picked up along the way from my corporate job and
Yeah.
school, etc. Let's
Yeah.
just put all that to work for myself.
Yeah, yeah. And I pick up a few things that, my listeners need to tap into. The first thing there was control the controllables. There are
Yeah.
just things that you can't stress yourself out about because you have no control over them. So focus on what is in your remit. And the second thing I heard there was you talking about using your transferable skills, knowing
Mm.
that you developed a set of skills over an illustrious career that you can tap into. And this week I did a post, a quick social media post that said to women, you're not starting from scratch, you're starting from experience
Right.
because what you learned, when you started out, all comes into play now.
Absolutely. I mean, if I can add to that, for example, in my corporate life, the most recent position I had was as a project manager for a private
Yeah,
well. And
yeah,
so I absolutely call on those project management skills within my
yeah,
own, business because it helps me to plan and find my toll gates and touch
yeah,
points as I'm releasing a new collection or
yeah,
product. So
yeah, yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. Now you said you had a bit of a, I suppose, for want of a better word, soft landing, making that transition, that pivot. But there are women listening to this right now who are either very scared because of what's happening right now in the current environment about all the changes and the
Mhm.
especially in the US government with the cutbacks and stuff like that. And then some thinking, well, I want to be able to pivot, but I'm a little bit fearful. So what did you fear most about changing careers?
Well, so if I can just make a small correction, it was a soft pivot. It wasn't a soft landing because
Right,
let me
okay.
tell you, losing that job hit hard. It did. It hit hard. It had
Yeah,
been my identity and my source of income for
yeah,
28 years. I've been in the
yeah,
same role.
yeah,
So it was hard. It was a hard and it was scary,
yeah,
so I can definitely identify um, you know, when I was notified that my job was going away, all of the things here in the US had not really happened. There was still kind
yeah,
of hope that we would have a
yeah.
Madam President
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
and not what we currently have. And so, you know, come November and as the political and economic climate here, has started to kind of take a turn for the worse.
yeah,
It's been scary.
yeah.
So I'll have to tell you what I have done for myself. I took time during that past year
Mm,
to engage a therapist
right.
and to focus on making sure that my mental health was taken care of. I put
Yeah,
myself first
yeah.
and I committed to weekly sessions for a full year.
Wow.
Now that's a lot,
Yeah,
and I was very blessed to be able to do that. If you can do it, if you aren't able to, I would say find an accountability partner, find someone to help you go through
mm,
the journey, find a positive, another Peach, someone else who can help you find the positivity in your day, in your week, because
yeah,
it's very easy to doom scroll, go down the rabbit hole,
yeah,
lean into that fear. But having someone to help you find and focus on the positive,
mm,
find what is transferable, as you mentioned a moment ago, looking around your current environment to find what you can do to support yourself, to whether it be financially, emotionally, physically, do that. I committed to spending my money on the mental health aspect of it, but I needed to work on the physical aspect as
yeah,
well. So
yeah,
I started walking. That was free, you
yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah,
Um, and I had a neighbor who said, "Hey, I know what it's like going through this loss. Get out and walk.
yeah,
Let's go."
yeah,
And so I say, definitely find a way to find the positives
mm,
around you. Find a person to help you with that. It's
Yeah.
always easier to have someone else look at you from the
Yeah.
outside than it
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
to look at the inside.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Yes.
everybody might
Yes.
not have
Yeah.
that problem, but I did. And sometimes it took hearing from someone else, well, you can do this or you can do that,
Yeah.
and to really lean
Yeah.
into that. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
find your person and find positivity.
Yeah, that's some great advice. And I love the fact that, as you said, someone can see something in you that you don't see because we are so far in it sometimes that we
Hmm.
can't see the wood for the trees, as they say.
Yes.
We can't see, we don't see in ourselves what others see in us, and those sometimes are the very, very hidden gems. So, Laverne, what do you think has been the most surprising thing about stepping into your power after 50? Because you sound like a very assertive or self-assured woman.
Uh, yeah, I like to think I am.
Yeah.
Um, I think the most surprising thing is truly acknowledging that I can't do it all by myself.
Yep. Wake up call.
Yeah, that's hard. I mean, I'm a single parent. I'm used to running my household. I'm used to raising my kids. I'm used to having been the one to take care of my parents.
Mm,
And so I've
mm,
been used to relying on my own, ingenuity
yeah.
and my own, steam to get things done. And when I look back over the things that I've done, when I look at the things I'm currently doing and then what I want to do going forward, I'm really not by myself. I'm not
Right.
by myself.
Yeah.
I have community around me. There are days where I might feel alone, but I
Yeah.
have community around me. I have fiber art friends.
Yeah.
I found a group of women and men here in my local area where we meet up, when we can. The internet has been great when we were on
Yeah.
lockdown. Of course,
Yeah.
everyone was isolated.
Yes.
I found people all over the world,
Yeah.
that I was able to build an online community with.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Saturday mornings when we do our shenanigans, it is a place for me to talk and to share and to be encouraging. And I was kind of surprised that, it actually kind of does the same thing for me while I'm trying
Mm,
to encourage and inspire others. Okay, that might work
yeah.
for me too.
Fringe
And
benefits.
so, I don't want it to I don't know necessarily sound selfish, but I just kind of felt like, yeah, I'm in this business all alone, but I'm not. I have other business owners that I talk to, that I
Yeah.
collaborate with.
Yeah.
I have other business owners who I can pour into and they can pour into me.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so I think, just really being encouraging. And this is really kind of going down my acronym. I don't know if
Yeah.
you're doing that on purpose, but, the E in Be a Peach is encouraging. And so, what's been surprising is finding out that, yeah, I do have a community around me.
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
in it alone.
Yeah. And I think that's a very valuable thing because so many of us go through what I call the me, myself, and I syndrome
Mm,
because we don't talk about it because we don't think anybody else can understand, has been through it, knows what we're going through, can either offer support. But actually, if you just kind of get yourself out of that perspective, that mindset, you will
mm-hmm.
realize, like you say, there's whole different communities out there. You may need to use non-traditional methods,
Right.
going online as opposed to be physical networking, but it's out there if you put the effort in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So like
take a chance. Take a
yeah.
chance. It can be
Yeah,
scary.
exactly.
It can be
Yeah.
scary. I've had my
Yeah.
feelings hurt. I've been disappointed. All of the things. It's going to happen. When you're dealing with
Yeah.
someone other than yourself, that can happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
But push through that sometimes. Push through
Yeah.
that fear. Take a chance. Reach out.
Yeah.
If the person says no, the situation doesn't work out, okay, maybe you've lost a little bit of time. Take your
Yeah. And
time, mourn it, and then
yeah.
keep going.
Yeah. And I said, if you reach out to someone, they say no, then you're no worse off than when you started. But at least you're in a
Yeah.
better position because that would have been a no. So you don't lose your time there. So,
Yeah.
to me that's a positive.
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
me, that's a positive takeaway. So, Laverne, what myths about aging or midlife have you busted for yourself? You're a newly minted 52. I'm 60. So I've got a few years on you right now. So, but what myths have you busted about aging or midlife?
Um, Gosh, a myth. I don't know if this is so much a myth, but being not wanting to say how old you are, not wanting to tell people how old you are. I'm so proud of my 52 years and my gray hairs. And no shade to anyone, but I'm not dying it. I
Yeah,
refuse.
yeah,
I
yeah,
look at my shimmer and shine as a badge of honor.
yeah,
And so I think the myth of maybe trying to hold on to being young and
yeah,
being youthful, you still can be, at least in your heart. I think in my
yeah,
mind, I think I'm still 30. So sometimes my body might make me feel like I'm 80 sometimes, but I think just leaning into, aging and
yeah,
getting older
yeah,
and taking it as a blessing and not as a problem.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. I
so I don't
totally
know if
agree
that's
with
a
you.
myth, but yeah.
No, no, I totally agree with you because, as I said, I'm 60. I turned 60 last year.
Mm,
And I remember thinking, I'm older, but I don't feel old. And
mm-hmm,
that's it, and that's the difference. And like you, I stopped dyeing my hair. It was just too much. And I kept thinking, well, you can't have all this fabulous wisdom. More for you if you think all this fabulous wisdom comes without a few years on it. So
mm,
that's not my problem. That's yours. And
right.
I'm more than content with who I am at this stage of life. And I'm loving it. Just
Yeah.
that I don't give up attitude is
Yeah.
just very, very freeing.
And that's something I heard was coming. I heard that. I've heard that. Like, as you get to 40, you kind of feel a little bit of, something else. And as you get to 50, you hit 50 and 60. And I think it's so true because,
Mm,
yeah, I really don't give, like,
yeah, yeah,
I care. I am concerned for the things and the people around me,
yeah,
but the trying to let go of any of the fear and the shame or anything negative around it, it's hard, right? I'm not perfectly peachy every day, but I really try to focus on, look, I'm here, I made it
yeah,
these 52 years, so there we go. This
yeah. Fantastic,
yeah.
fantastic. So I want to touch on a little thing here because obviously you're in the corporate world, and we all know in the corporate world we get lots of accolades. We get lots of if we're doing well, we get lots of wins. We can celebrate our we can celebrate successes because we can see them. They're
Sure.
quantifiable. They're pretty much quantifiable. But how do you now at this stage of life or in the business and the transition celebrate your wins, big or small, at this stage?
Hmm. um Gosh, sometimes it's just quietly. I made it through last week. I made it through today. You know, um, I think being intentional about celebrating yourself is
Mm,
very important.
yeah.
Um, being in the corporate world, there are goals that you try to hit. There are
Yes.
awards that are given, that you can shoot for. You have metrics that if you
Yeah.
perform well or do, above and beyond, you can be rewarded. But in our own lives, that may not always be the case.
Mm,
So find a way to celebrate yourself, right? Find a way to, there's a song from back in the day, encourage yourself. And make sure that if you don't have some type of external celebration coming your way, given to you
mm,
by someone else, that you
mm,
celebrate yourself, that you find it
mm,
and make it happen for yourself.
mm, mm.
So it could simply be I made it through today or this month.
Yeah.
Sometimes, I can sit down and look at my sales figures and go, okay, I made a little bit more than I did last month. This is good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, a lot of people were really feeling this colorway that I, dyed on this yarn. Okay, pat yourself on the
Mm.
back. You did that. You put those colors together pretty well. You know, um, Make sure that you are finding ways to celebrate. If it's not coming to you through the world, find it in yourself. Take
Mm.
yourself out to eat, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or go sit in the park for a moment. Like, think about what it is that, if you were to be rewarded by someone
Yeah.
else, what would you want to
Yeah.
receive? And then do it for
Yeah.
yourself if nobody's giving it to you.
Yeah. Yeah. And do you think your measures of success have changed now?
Say that again.
Do you think your measures of success have changed?
Yes. Yes, they have. They've become a little bit closer to home. It's been more about um what I can do for myself and my community.
Mm.
I think having my own business and being able to control that, what I put out and how I present it, means more to me than hitting an arbitrary metric or goal that
Yeah.
in the end might have work towards hitting our bottom line numbers in a corporate
Yeah.
world.
Yeah. Yeah.
But for myself, it could be bringing attention to something that I find important, making sure that I paid a bill this month because I made enough income from my business. So yeah, I mean, what success looks like has definitely changed.
Yeah. 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 I hear that. I hear that. So let me just ask a little bit more about Busy Peach. Tell me about the business, what you do.
Absolutely. So I am a yarn dyer. I take undyed yarn and embroidery threads and I apply the dye and colors in ways that I hope that people find intriguing, and beautiful. Um, I chuckled a little bit early on as you mentioned that you are in a warm weather part of the world. And so you found that, you maybe don't knit or crochet as much, but I live in Atlanta, Georgia, and it can be hot,
Yeah.
very, very hot here also. And I wanted to find some ways that people could continue to craft and crochet and so initially I focused on only plant-based fibers. So
Okay.
fibers that were either cotton or tencel, which is a wood-based fiber, and they are designed to wick away moisture and keep you cool.
Oh, nice.
So you could
Yes.
crochet yourself a nice summer top or a beach cover up in something that would not be heavy and warm and weighty in the
Yeah.
summer, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But still be elevated and elegant because I classify myself as a luxury yarn dyer. The yarns that I put out, they're durable, they're beautiful. They are going to help elevate your look, your craft, whatever it is that you are creating.
Yeah.
Same thing with the embroidery threads. Another part of the business is I also do custom journals, where I create yarn journals, project journals, and also lined and dotted journals that have Black people on the cover, mostly Black women,
Yeah.
because in the fiber arts world, I was gifted one
Yeah.
by a friend of mine, and it had a beautiful lady on the front with her little blonde bun, with her little knitting needles in it, which was really cute. But I'm like, she didn't look anything like me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I said, well, I need to go ahead and, create
Okay.
something, that looks like me or
Yeah.
those that are close to
Almost
me.
looks
And
almost
so,
looks like me.
oh my gosh, she does. You look, the bang is it's only the bangs that are missing, right?
Yeah.
So that's something that I enjoy doing. I enjoy creating the digital artwork. I have to explain to people, no, this is not AI. This is BP. This is Busy Peach. Like, this was from
Yeah.
my hand.
Yeah.
And so I design custom covers, to express, part of my creativity as well. The
Fantastic.
third thing that I
Fantastic.
would say is Saturday morning shenanigans on Instagram Live, 10 o'clock Eastern on Saturday mornings, most Saturdays. I take a break every now and then.
Okay.
I go live on Instagram, and they're called shenanigans because I preface it with, this is the place where you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be peachy. Something's going to go wrong.
Yeah.
I'm going to drop the phone. The lights are going to go off. I can't find what I need. Something's going to go wrong, and
Yeah.
that's okay. And so, if we know that it's not going to be perfect, then when the problem happens, we just pivot and
Happens.
keep on going.
Yeah.
And so,
Fabulous.
yeah, release the pressure from myself, but it's also a place where we can, focus on being peachy, positive, encouraging, audacious, creative, happy. So, yes.
Fantastic, fantastic. So, Laverne, we're coming down to our last couple of questions, and I've loved
Sure.
our conversation. So, what would you say for you is the most empowering thing about being a Black woman over 50?
Ooh. The most empowering thing is that I was born into this body, into this skin, into this community, into this world as one of the most amazing people, period. And I want other Black women to feel that,
Yeah,
regardless of who you are, where you are, what has happened. I've been
yeah,
through some rough times. I've been through a lot. I have made it through to the other side. And I think being a Black woman has made that possible because I was raised by Black women, right? I love my Black brothers,
mm,
fathers, uncles, etc. But there is just something about just period being a Black woman that
yeah,
we have inside of us. There is a will to thrive, a will to survive, a will to make things happen, a will to be happy, a will to not just settle for the status
yeah,
quo that,
yeah,
you know, unfortunately may have been born through hard times, either in immediate or past history,
yeah.
but it's a blessing.
Mm,
It's a
mm,
blessing. And so, it's hard to just say there's one thing. Um, it's hard to say there's one thing, but I think that just in itself, knowing that I can call on my inner strength, my strength in my community, my
yeah,
other sisters, to move forward, to accomplish the things that we want to accomplish, is just amazing. So I know that's
fantastic.
probably a little bit rambling. It's
No,
hard to put it succinctly,
no, I think it's a
because there's
beautiful
just so
message.
much. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a beautiful message. So I'm not going to press you anymore on that. But if people want to connect with you, want to get to know more about what you do in business, Busy Peach, Laverne, how can they do that?
Absolutely. So the first place would be to find my website, which is busypeach.com. And that's spelled BZYPEACH.com. On Saturday mornings, find me on an Instagram live. Come into the comments, chat, come live with me. And I love to invite you to come live with me as well. It's a great place with an encouraging audience to practice being live on Instagram, to share and talk about who you are, what you're doing, or what have you. You can find me on Instagram at Busy Peach. Again, BZYPEACH. I even have a little theme song that will help you remember that. So come see me on
Okay.
Saturdays.
Fabulous. I'll take you up on that. Thank you. I'll
Yes.
take you up on that. So, Laverne, that has been a beautiful, a lovely way to end. Thank you so much for being my guest on This Woman Can.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And I am in amazing company with your other guests, and I'm honored to be in your presence. So thank you.
Thank you. Didn't I say Laverne was amazing? And I did take her up on her offer to be on her Saturday Shenanigans. And you can go back to her page on Instagram and see our interview there on Busy Peach. Now, if you're thinking about, okay, I feel inspired now, what's next for my career? I want to remind you that my program, specifically for Black women over 50, just like you, 50 Forward, Fearless Future, goes live in June. The next cohort starts in June, and it'll give you all the tools you need to reimagine what your next chapter is. And if you're not quite sure about what's next as well, you can actually join me at the Virtual Job Liberation Summit for Black Women in May, where I'll be hosting a masterclass Pivot to Power as part of the program. So you can find more details both about the 50 Forward Fearless Future and the Job Liberation Summit by visiting the show notes. And I really hope to see you at one of those events. But if you need any help, you know where you are, you know where I am. You can always reach out to me. I'm on all the socials. I am Janice Sutherland. And as always, always remember that reinvention is your right. You can reimagine, you can reinvent, you can be anything you want to be. At this age is just a number. And always remember, if I can, you can, this woman can. Take care until next time.